A movement often observed in many advanced, many accomplished players is the concept of lateral separation that can exist between the pelvis and hands in transition. So in some ways, the sway value or the movement on that frontal plane, so as you move in transition, how much the hands and pelvis are actually increasing their separation, that lateral distance in transition. So for example, when we look at the idea of, say, lead arm, adduction or reduction, the ability to produce that adduction in that kind of lead shoulder, lead arm in transition. There's a rotational component, for example, how much that ribcage can rotate into that lead shoulder. Alongside that though, there's also a lateral component. There's that lateral separation, the increase in some ways, as the pelvis and hands are moving laterally away from each other. That's also a tremendous motivator and also another contributor to that kind of idea, that lead arm adduction. So adduction comes from both the rotational movement and also that separation, the increase in the pelvis and hands in transition. So actually using some 3D values now, we can start to see in certainly very accomplished, very advanced movers, that how much the pelvis and the hands are actually increasing that space, increasing that distance, that sway value in some ways in transition. However, we look at, say, less advanced players, can almost the occasional player, the recreational player in some cases, how that space reduces in transition, so there's no increase in the distance between the pelvis and hands in transition. So movement we can really look to explore, which often connects back to some of the most accomplished players, the most advanced players, is that increase in that pelvis hand, the lateral separation that can exist between the hands and pelvis in transition, compared to more, say for example, the less advanced, the less established players. We see that narrow between the pelvis and the hands. One of the big fallouts that we can then start this is, or certainly almost the response in some ways then can be an increase in adduction around that lead arm and shoulder. For sure there's a rotational component, but also that lateral separation is a tremendous contributor to then the ability to produce that lead arm adduction in downswing.